Hello friends, my name is Rahul and welcome to my channel Rahul Prasad Vlogs. Today I am going to give the review of book The Creative Art of Life, which was written by K.M. Munshi. So before I start, I would like to tell you something about the author. K.M. Munshi was one of Gujarat's most well-known literary writers. His historical novels have contributed profoundly to the sense of past that Gujarat lives with. A multifaceted personality, he was a prominent lawyer, freedom fighter and politician. He was also the founder of the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. He was influenced by Sri Aurobindo and was an ardent freedom fighter with working Mahatma Gandhi, Sardar Patel and others. He was one of the framers of Indian Constitution. Now, I will give the introduction of the book. A reprint of a book first published in 1946 contains 19 short essays with different titles on the educational system of pre-independent India. Munshi stresses that creative education should make our young men of India really strong, true, and free, an embodiment of the finest in the culture, an authentic representative of India which has a message for humanity. The book is one of Munshi's masterpieces and is a genuine guide to students and teachers. So, the book is divided into 19 parts and I will review the book accordingly to their parts. So, in the first part, which is introductory, what I like the most is that the author has focused more on the core of our country's culture. He believes that the education system of India should teach the students the greatness of our country. Other point I would like to add that he tells us that despite English is the most dominant medium of study, but we should not forget to learn our culture. In the second and third part, which is the Indian student and the inadequacy of modern education, is all about that the education system in India should be creative. The one thing he writes in the book is about nationalism. That is, that our country should be treated as a mother and all its parts are important and cannot be divided. He gives examples of several eminent personalities who have played an important role to pass our culture from one generation to another generation through their institutions. He added names of Swami Dayanand Saraswati, Mahatma Gandhi, who founded Gujarat Vidyapith, and many others. In the fourth part, which is formative education, he tells us about that how a student should be bring up. He tells us that every student has different abilities, so they should do their work according to their abilities under the guidance of elders and their teachers, keeping in mind about our Indian culture. In the fifth part, which is a challenge to Westernism, he tells us that in the Western education dominance, we should not forget our ancient culture and the principles of our old ones, and by taking them as our inspiration, we should challenge the Western education and should keep our beliefs according to our culture. He also gives examples of Gandhiji, Sri Aurobindo, etc. Literally, I like this part the most. In the sixth part, that is growth of personality, he tells that we should grow to our capabilities and use it to its fullest. And also, according to me, it is somehow true. In the seventh part, which is Sanskrit as an indispensable factor in culture reintegration, he tells us that we should revive and reintegrate our Indian culture by studying our ancient books like Mahabharata, Ramayana, Bhagavad Gita, Vedas. He tells us about the importance of Sanskrit language. Most of our ancient books were written in Sanskrit language. Also, according to me, Sanskrit language should not be forgotten and should be revived. Personally, I also like Sanskrit language so much because when I read Bhagavad Gita in my free time, I admire the shlokas which are written in Sanskrit language. And to keep our ancient Indian culture alive, it is very important to learn Sanskrit. In the eighth part, Sanskrit as a factor in formative education, he believes that the study of Sanskrit is important to learn our ancient literatures. He tells that Westernism has taught us false values by technology, etc., because they are modern and they cannot take place of modern education. He tells that he had given his best in Gujarati and Hindi literature. He is also known to Bengali, Marathi, and many more languages, but no language can take place of Sanskrit language. And in my point of view, I totally agree with him that no language can take place of Sanskrit language. In the ninth part, that is dangers of a narrow scholarship, he tells us that in our old education system, the old forms of culture are accepted as eternal. It is not thought of in terms of integration. And in modern education, our Indian culture is included like a postmodern. And still, we promote and give importance to modern education, which did not focus on our Indian culture. So, it is like a scholarship to modern education. In the 10th part, that is essential unity of Indian culture, Munshi ji says that the book which we are studying today don't tell us about the personality of our kings like Maharana Pratap, Prithviraj Chauhan, and many more like them. But the books tells us only about their wars. So this thing should be changed and people should start learning about their personality. In the 11th part, that is expression as a formative process, he tells us we should give importance to literary studies also. He says that in today's modern education, we should give formative importance to our culture and literary studies. We should not forget these two things when we are studying the Western education. In the 12th part, that is the creative power of the recurring recital, he tells us that how we can use the language, which is a powerful medium through which the soul expresses itself. He said that with the help of language we can express all our feelings. He gives many examples of books, and when we study all these books, it gives direct happiness to our soul. In the 13th part, that is teachers as an apostle of culture, he says that teachers should not focus only on the modern education. He should also focus on our culture so that the student will able to flourish in their culture. In the 14th part, that is the student as an artist of self-sculpture, he says that the student should not be only dependent on teachers, but they should become self-dependent and should study their culture by themselves. In the 15th part, that is supreme part of life, he tells us that why we should study creative education, because it can help to develop our speech, expression, and the love for our motherland. In the 16th part, that is the supreme artist of life, he tells us that God will not come directly into man's life, but the great masters will come in our life, and we should believe in them and should learn from them, their teaching, and take inspiration from them. In the 17th part, that is the modern masters of art, he tells us that the creative art did not remain in our country as a remote memory, but our masters like Swami Dayanand Saraswati and others has kept them alive. In the 18th part, that is two living masters, he tells us about his two inspirations. The first one was Sri Aurobindo and the second one was Mahatma Gandhi. He admires both of them so much. He also takes names of others who has gave an important contribution for Indian culture to fight with Westernism. Last but not the least, in the last part, which is 19th part of the book, that is the effective expression of culture, he tells that in our Indian education system, they should not forget to teach the culture to our students while they are studying about scientific and technical studies. Now, I would like to tell you the thing which I particularly liked about the book the most. The thing which I particularly liked about the book is that it tells us the importance of our Indian culture. Personally, I would also like to tell you that the countries like China and Japan are taking their culture so seriously and passing from one generation to another. And despite this, they are progressing very fastly as compared to our country. But in our country, the young ones are not taking our culture seriously and they are making fun of it. Now, the thing which I dislike about this book, now in my personal opinion, particularly, I didn't dislike anything about this book. Now, whom I will recommend this book? So, I will recommend this book to each and every student of our country so they can learn the importance of our culture. Now, my rating for this book will be, overall the book is written very well by K.M. Munshi and I will give this book 9.5 out of 10 marks. So thank you and have a nice day, and hope if you liked my video, please share, like and subscribe. Thank you so much.